Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. We have a full slate of commissioners. We have the administrator and the clerk of the board here in the commissioners' chambers. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order. If you'd please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, with that, first order on the schedule is the office business approval of vouchers.
So we have two vouchers before us today. I move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $1,009,426.28 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $783,237.29 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Down to the consent agenda, 4 items on the consent agenda.
Move for approval of consent agenda as presented. 4 items. Discussion on item 1, please.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the 4 items on the consent agenda with discussion on item 1. Proceed.
I just want to thank the Public Works staff for doing a little bit of additional background research for us, and since learned that the language in the package last week that suggested we may have to ship a used motor grader somewhere, anywhere, has been refined, and we don't have to ship it. It just goes back to the local dealer, which is great. Thanks for doing that legwork for us. Other than that, no issues.
That way, excuse me, wasn't it originally written that way in the contract in 2018?
Yes, I researched that, and it was written the same way, so I'm just glad we caught it this time and make sure that it goes right back to this dealership.
Thank you.
So there's been a motion and a second to approve the 4 consent items. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Been a busy week. Participated in the Wasatch call with update from the State Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation regarding historic courthouse grant funding that's available at the state level. We do not anticipate applying for that grant fund this year, as we do not have projects related to the historic preservation of this building on schedule. But wanted to make sure you're aware that program is still active. We took advantage of it when we did the major renovation of the courthouse about 7 or 8 years ago, and if and when we have to do another major preservation project on this building, we would then apply for those grant funds. Been having stakeholder meetings with Benton County and the regional partners on the Juvenile Justice Center design that is in the kind of the beginning stages, continuing to participate in those planning sessions. Strategic planning sessions are still continuing with Benton County Emergency Services and CCOM, trying to get a handle on some of the real challenges we face with hiring and retaining 911 operators, and make sure that we're continuing to deliver those services that are essential to the community. The Mental Health Advisory Board, we are still putting together some of that information, and that will probably be before the board either next week or the following week for appointments to that. Just an update from Benton County, the negotiations with LifePoint regarding the purchase of the Kennewick General Hospital facility. There have been some challenges with that negotiation. It doesn't appear that that's going to be able to go forward with the same intent that they had planned. There are some restrictive covenants that LifePoint wants to place on the deed that would kind of prohibit us from being able to execute the full scope of services that we'd planned for that facility. So they're looking at some alternate locations for the facility that would be long-term. They're also considering a purchase of the KGH facility for part of the services, but it just wouldn't be the full spectrum of mental health services that we are needing to cover and will be covering with additional mental health taxes that are going to be coming in. That's really most of what I've been working on the last week. So provide that as an update.
Commissioner Peck.
Excuse me. Can I have just a moment to reset this phone?
Absolutely, yes, please. I hear an echo going on.
Welcome. Please enter the attendee access. The meeting access code you entered is invalid.
Gotta wait for the prompt.
Welcome. To join the conference now, please enter the attendee access code. The meeting access code you entered is invalid.
Instead of the 1357.
Completed. Please consult your directory and... Welcome. To join the conference now, please enter a meeting number followed by pound.
2969.
Please enter the attendee access code followed by pound.
Sorry.
There we go. We're good. Commissioner Peck.
I participated in the Washington State Association of Counties Board of Directors meeting last Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. I chaired the statewide legislative steering committee for the State Association of Counties, where we did an initial map out of legislative agenda items on behalf of the 39 counties to go before the state legislature in January. Benton Franklin Council of Governments meetings with staff on federal highway funds and on possible adjustments to a local loan fund known as the Rural Revolving Loan Fund. WASAC, the Monday call that Mr. Johnson referenced on historic preservation with Chris Moore from the Historic Preservation Association. And just a thought, as you were mentioning that, there is one project that we may want to think about whether we use the grant program or not. But if you'll notice on the railing upstairs in the rotunda, it's been elevated for safety. The original railing was shorter. And we've also put side rails on things on occasion to give an extra handrail. And I'm wondering if on our spiral staircase, if it wouldn't be possible to put some sort of a laterally extended handrail that would require people to walk on the outer portion of the stairs nearest the wall where the stair treads are deep, rather than walking on the inside where they're short. It's just something to look at, think about as to whether or not that might improve safety. I realize it's not the only issue there, but if we need to make an adjustment to that staircase, this would be a way to do it that's historically appropriate, and we could get the state to cost share.
Certainly glad to take a look at that.
Is that the final? Okay.
Yeah, and I hadn't intended to bring it up. You just mentioned the historical thing. I didn't mean to catch you off guard, but it just occurred to me. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen.
So last week sat on the Ben Franklin Transit Board meeting. It's been approved that 18 and under will ride for free as of July 1st. That is one of the 2 requirements in securing funding from the Move Ahead Washington bill. The second part, the second requirement for the Move Ahead Washington deals with taxing authority, and we are still waiting on legal to make a determination on the verbiage as far as concerning the taxing authority. Also set in the WASAC meeting on Monday with the courthouse historical grant funding. Also might want to note that if anyone's interested in serving on the Board of Health along with the commissioners from Benton and Franklin County, that maybe come forward and either ask one of the commissioners or contact Jason Zakar with the Benton Franklin Board of Health, as that will be soon approaching that we have to add 1 additional member per commissioner on that board. And that's what I have for last week.
Last week, I also attended the Ben Franklin Transit. Franklin County has 2 representatives on there, 2 directors. And to clarify on what we're waiting on from legal is the taxing authority and tax rate. They're claiming that if we lower the rate, then we're going to lose our funding that we can get, when it's been argued that, no, it's the taxing authority. And we have that authority to tax. The rate is the determination. So that's trying to give it back to the citizens on the ability to lower it 1/10 of 1% is all we're trying to do as directors. Just let the people have the say, as they had the say in the water park, and they passed it, but only 1 in 5 voted. That was a short week for me, limited there, and on the 18 and younger, it was also proposed that everybody should ride free, because how are we going to determine what one's age is? And they're talking about issuing cards, and it'll be convoluted. It's going to be a mess. There will be arguments. They're trying to keep their bus drivers out of arguments with the riders. Somebody proposed that everybody ride for free. I'm not in favor of that. I don't think even the kids should be riding for free, because then you're taking them off the school system, which is also taxpayer paid. With that, we'll move down to public comment. Anybody for public comment?
Commissioners, I have 2 comments for you today, and we'll start with the first one, which is our 911 emergency operations system and what we call CCOM. So from a historical purpose, I think it was about 2017, we decided to shut down our E911 services and go into partnership with BCES, Benton, Franklin County. With an overall goal, when we signed over about $1.5 million to them, to create a system that was standalone, a public facilities type of E911 system. Last week, I was sitting in on a executive board meeting where actually comments that I heard were quite disappointing. I was addressed by the city manager of Richland how it's their responsibility to hire employees, et cetera, et cetera. I'm concerned with that and the direction that CCOM's currently going. I would recommend to you that you do not sign over your PSAPs or our infrastructure in this county to anybody until these issues are signed out, in case we have to stand up an answering center, an E911 answering center. And so please keep that in mind and pay particular attention to what's going on with that right now. Let's go to the KGH thing real quick. This is what happens when you let one side of the equation be in control of purchasing a building or those type of things, instead of all the partners coming together and making those decisions. I again would ask you to pay particular attention to the progress of all of that in case we need to go backwards and decide if we're going to have to build our own facilities here in Franklin County to cover what our needs are. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody on the phone, Keith? I thought I heard something there. Or anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move down to the preliminary approval of sub 2022-01 Spencer Estates Phase 4. Derek.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is subdivision 2022-01. It's what we call a major amendment to Spencer Estates Phase 4. This came before the board, I want to say in 2021, somewhere in there, as this half acre proposed to be using city water. The applicant has resubmitted requesting 1 acre lots using exempt wells. Parcel numbers 126-150-142 is generally located, well, it's actually bound by Burns Road to the south, and it's west of Kohler Road, south of Ricky Road, east of Columbia River. It is in the UGA with a comp plan designation of low-density residential, but the zoning is residential suburban 20, allowing for a minimum of 20,000 square foot lots. And the applicant is seeking to create 21 parcels, 1 acre minimum on a 25.3 acre lot. This is so in the original, no. Oh well, the pointer didn't work. In the original application that was presented to the board, it was this parcel plus these 5 along the side to the west. However, they've been broke up. That was done through a short plat, and then the 5 properties to the west were broke up using a short plat process, and then this is what's before you today. This is proposed preliminary layout. One item of note is the 3 parcels, Blackfoot Court here on the east. The applicant has requested a reduced frontage to 35 feet. In a cul-de-sac that can be reduced with approval of the board. This was presented to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval of that deviation. But that is in the hands of the board. The site is the tan area there. It's just, at this point, just crops. I don't know exactly what type of crops, but they seem to rotate. All the notification as required was performed on March 3rd, as well as the SEPA determination, mitigated SEPA determination, non-significance, which was provided and listed in the SEPA registry as 202-200-889. There were, as part of our process, when we prepare the packet for the board, we also send a copy of that to the applicant. The applicant noticed that we had a couple typos in the actual resolution. So on page 6, basically we had the square footage not accurate to those statements. It stated 43,727 was the square footage, when it's actually 46,415 for the average lot size, and then the minimum lot size is 43,609 as opposed to 43,627, or 727. And then in the now therefore section, the original version did not have phase 4. So this specifies, because there's 4 different subdivisions named Spencer Estates. At the April 12th, 2022 meeting, after holding a public hearing on the matter, Franklin County Planning Commission voted to recommend that the board approve subdivision 2022-01 with 6 suggested findings of fact and 4 suggested conditions of approval. And I have a suggested motion if you'd like to proceed, but happy to answer any questions.
Questions, commissioners?
What are the 4 suggested conditions of the approval?
What you'll see in our process is that though there's 4 listed conditions, there's generally sub-conditions, so but I don't have them memorized off the top of my head, I apologize. Oh.
You'll find them on page 8 of the package.
Yeah, so, there we go. So they'll need to comply with the County Works, Public Works Department requirements, including, that there's a variety of notes that they would be, these are pretty standard. A lot of it comes out in the actual process, but cul-de-sacs will need to be, so Public Works has various technical requirements associated with road dimension, process, those types of things. They call out for a mitigation fee to Burns Road. Do you want me to go through all of these, or?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Then, the health district notes or conditions need to be met, the assessor's office, and then county planning conditions. And then, as you see, in each of those conditions, there's sub-conditions that flesh out what those specific requirements are.
Derek, any, excuse me, any conditions of approval that are unique or different from the ones we see on a regular basis?
They are under the 5,000 aggregate limit on that site because they switched off of the city's water. So that's a little unique. And then
Okay, and the 5,000 aggregate, you're talking about gallons
I'm
of water
sorry,
per day
yes,
from
yes,
well, just
yeah.
for people who aren't familiar.
right. And then no more than half acre of the site can be irrigated, but they are proposing to bring in outside irrigation. So
Derek, if I may, in your findings of fact in 1A, the first sentence says the application is not in compliance with the City of Pasco's comprehensive plan, but is in compliance with the county's comp plan. That's not an uncommon circumstance, but when it's a development area that I think has potential for annexation in the not near future, but not the distant future either, somewhere in between, I think it's always good to visit what that distinction or difference is. Thinking back to the days of the early Kohler Road developments, and they had their own water system and fire hydrants, and later didn't care to maintain that. So what's the distinction this time?
it has to do with minimums, density minimums.
Okay.
Franklin County Code does not have a
Right.
minimum, whereas the city of Pasco has a preferred minimum of at least, or I shouldn't say preferred, they state 2 units, if I recall correctly, per, so it's that differential, but it meets the zoning requirements of the county, so.
Sure. I'm just curious. I don't recall in quite a few years of doing this, anyone ever calling out the distinction about it not complying with the city's comp plan when it's in unincorporated county, and respectfully to the city that their comp plan doesn't apply directly. So why would we call it out this time?
Because this is, since I've been here, this is the only site that fell into that. Everything else had been a half acre, which,
Okay. All right.
Whereas-
That makes sense.
yeah.
others may have additional questions. I made myself a couple of notes. I think the only other one was, you mentioned that on cul-de-sacs, the standard was it 25 or 35 for the approach along the curb? What's the standard?
The standard,
Is minimum, is it 25 or 35?
it's actually, okay, the minimum without approval by the board is 50.
Is 50, okay, and they're
Yeah.
requesting 25 or 35?
35.
35.
Yeah.
Okay, and in your experience, any issues with 35?
Not that I'm aware of. You're going to have tight, they're going to be kind of close. The driveway accesses will be pretty close to one another, but then the lots flare out. So,
It's not going to cause any issues with space for power boxes or
no,
anything else?
because you can set them back further
Okay,
if
all
that's
right,
an
great,
issue.
thank you.
Can you go back to the map, Derek?
The plat map?
Yeah. Do you, roadways,
Okay.
can you incorporate, can you go back to the map that's on the last page of our, because I can't read roads on this.
Okay.
It has, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Okay, what's the road to the south of that?
That blue line there, that's Burns.
That's Burns Road.
Yeah.
What are we planning on there? Is that still gonna remain a 2-lane road, or are we gonna increase the size of that? And how are these people gonna be able to move?
Yes, the intent over time, and that's hence the mitigation fee, each lot at the time of build will be required to contribute towards improving Burns Road. So it is a plan.
Just
Yeah.
Burns or other roads in the vicinity too?
I know for a fact Burns Road, I don't know specifically regarding the other roads. These roads are residential, the
Right.
ones that are splitting through, so no, there would be, it's unlikely there'd be improvements made to that. Dent Road eventually, maybe Kohler, I would have to defer to Public Works specifically regarding what the overall plan for that area is. But yes, as development occurs, it is envisioned that certain roads, basically what we call arterial or collectors, are improved to accommodate that feed in.
So it's envisioned, but is there a timeline for getting it done?
It's usually done based on certain specific triggers. Until those triggers occur, when you go to apply for funding, you'll be denied because your road doesn't reach the level of concern to where and that's the intent of those mitigation fees, is not to pay for the project, but usually to create our match, because almost always these types of grants require a match.
Okay. It's gonna get heavily inundated with houses, and we need a system to get them to and from work.
Yeah.
Or wherever they're going.
It is something that I know Public Works is working on, looking at and getting a plan together for that.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a suggested motion.
Any other questions?
No further questions.
If no more questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt Resolution 2022-105, granting preliminary approval of sub 2022-01 with 6 findings of fact and 4 conditions of approval as recommended by the Planning Commission, detailed in the staff report and provided for in the resolution.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve 2022-01, Resolution 2022-105, correct? Or, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Derek. With
Thank
with
you.
that, we'll move down to public comment. Is there anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No one on the phone.
Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll move down to administration office business. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the past few weeks, we've had some discussions about the need to make some major capital investment in energy systems at the Happel Center, and having some discussions with the board on funding or financing those improvements. McKinstry, they're represented here today. They have been working, for a couple of years now on this project, Lance and Christie. Been very helpful to us in kind of guiding us through what's needed and what we need to be looking at. Tom French, the manager of the HAPA Center, is also here today. And we've invited Dave Zabel, city manager for the city of Pasco, to join us. Appreciate Dave's participation. We all are well aware of the importance of the HAPA Center to not only Franklin County as a business entity, but the county, the citizens that are impacted by that facility. And certainly the city of Pasco is a partner in our operating that facility. We have an agreement with the city for participation in the funding of operations of the HAPO Center that expires, I believe, in 2024. Am I right on that, Tom? And we need to start the process of working toward renewing that or deciding what that future is going to look like for the HAPO Center. So, Dave, if you want to come to the table there, I imagine the commissioners might have some questions about the city's willingness to continue to participate. And I know it would be premature to ask for a commitment, that there's still some briefing to be done before the commission, or the city council. Tom French and I are going to be attending an upcoming city council meeting to have kind of a similar discussion with them from our perspective. And just kind of open the floor to that, Mr. Chairman, however you want to.
Just want to welcome Mr. Zabel and open that up for questions. Been a great partner previous, eliminating debt when we have it. We're close to almost breaking even now because we've got a good manager out there. Just want to open it up for questions because this is a heck of a commitment by Franklin County, and I was hoping maybe we'd see some help from the city of Pasco. Commissioners.
Go ahead. Has this been presented to the city of Pasco?
Actually, not as of yet. So first of all, good morning, commissioners. So Keith and I talked about this a few weeks ago when he brought the analysis from your ESCO effort and shared with me, I think, rough costs, approximate costs. And, we talked about a cost sharing piece at that point in time. And then he was here last week talking to the commissioners, obviously, about it. And I had the opportunity to watch at least part of that discussion. And what Keith and I kind of worked out is I'd come this morning, happy to answer questions. As Keith said, I can't make a commitment on behalf of the city council, but we've been partners in this effort for 30 years, been through the worst of it together on operational deficits, and the city's very appreciative of the fact that we're not having to each spend a few $100,000s a year to balance the books like we were just a few short years ago. So that's great news, great progress on the facility. I think we have shared in some capital in the past, but this is a big ask, and so our next step after me attending here and answering what questions I can would be Keith is going to give a presentation to our city council.
So you're aware of the audit or the energy
Yes.
compliance that we have to have. And so this is a move to try to get into compliance by 2026. It's actually due 2027, but we have to have it in order by 2026. So it is of a timely situation, and this would lower us 24 points. And it's a move to also eliminate expense in ballast bulbs replacement, because I know they're working diligently on keeping them lights going, and with the new lighting system, it'll be a major workload off of the staff out there. So it'll actually save us time and money there.
Yeah, I am. Honestly, Keith and I didn't have an opportunity to talk in depth about the audit piece. It was more about the general overall findings. So I wasn't aware of the compliance issue. until I watched the meeting last time. So
Yeah.
we just hadn't got into that level of detail. I think when he shared with me how much money it was, I got back up off the floor. You know, that was that was the gist of our conversation. But yeah, I obviously I think the city's been partners with the county in this for 30 plus years, and I don't see that stopping. As the county administrator pointed out, the agreement is, I think, up next year, excuse me, a year and a half. Probably going to have to be some discussion on, you know, if we're talking about multi-million-dollar investment for both of us, probably have to be some discussion on what's that look for the agreement. You know, if the agreement expires in a year and a half, does it make sense for the city to put those dollars in? So we need to have that discussion and kind of go down that route a bit. But I can tell you from conversations I've had with council members over the years, I think all of our council recognizes what a valuable asset Hapo Center is to the community and to the region. As a matter of fact, there's events that can be held at Hapo that couldn't be held elsewhere. And some of the things that are holding us back, obviously the arena side and getting some HVAC in there, but also the lighting is, you know, I think some good lighting would help really transition that. The parking lot lighting, again, we've been talking about that for years as well. You know, so I think everyone sees the need out there.
And let's not forget the parking lot itself. It's in dire need too. I mean, and there's an opportunity there for entrepreneurs to come in around that parking lot, and we could actually create more avenues for revenue. So there's just a lot of possibilities out there. And I think it's a big asset for not only the city of Pasco, but it's for Franklin County too. But I think the city is reaping the rewards of the hotel motel tax and a few other things with the rental of the softball fields. We're being very generous on that. And it all helps Pasco in their hotel motel tax. It brings in teams, it brings in people that are staying there, and so.
Well, and even the county gets to share the sales tax and property tax as well too in the city.
Yeah,
so.
but the hotel motel tax, I think we're excluded
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll let you, other commissioners.
So, good morning, Mr. Zabel.
Morning.
Good to see you again. Would it be fair to say that the city of Pasco has been a cooperative and generous partner in keeping the track, now Hapo Center, open? I think that's fair. Would it be equally fair to say that the revenue from hotel, motel, and other taxes has been sufficient to cover the city's obligations for cost sharing? I'm asking this because I've not looked at all the numbers over the years and come to a conclusion. I'm just looking for a general assessment. If I were the city, I would look at it and say, well, it helps with commerce, it generates business, it brings people into the community, they spend money. But I've always believed and I guess hoped that those motel taxes would be a significant offset to your cost sharing. How do you feel about that? How do you see it? I know you probably haven't seen the numbers directly either.
It's been a while since I've looked at those numbers, but you know, definitely the lodging tax dollars help. Particularly now since the debt service is paid off that we had. You know, for a while there we were
Right.
both paying about $250,000 a year on debt service as well. That was retired about 3-4 years ago, so it's much more of a break-even situation for us.
Yeah. Well, the real underlying premise for my question is that any successful long-term partnership needs to be a win-win for both sides, and I'm just trying to feel out how the city feels about the return you get through hotel, motel, and other taxes as opposed to the cost and the investment. I mean, I get the sense that it's not an inexpensive venture for either side, but everybody seems to be profiting from it. Is that fair?
Yeah, I wouldn't maybe use the term profit since we're government, but yeah.
Sorry, leading the witness. Everybody seems to be benefiting to a measure that is reasonable and would likely keep all the parties engaged for a long term.
Yeah, I believe the city and county are offering a great asset to the community through this, and you know, the lodging tax makes it a little bit less painful financially. Lodging tax is pretty limited on what you can spend it on, so wouldn't have, you know, so Hapo is a great place to shift it to.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for the past support and participation. There has been some, excuse me, some off and on occasional reference to the soccer fields and to the softball fields. And just to clarify and make sure I have it right, the city owns the soccer fields, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Keystone
Right.
Stadium and the soccer
And
fields.
the county owns the softball fields, which the city greatly improved and developed at your own cost in return for $1 a year lease. Is that accurate too?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
And we've still been investing in those. We put batting cages in there this last year, and so,
Right.
yeah, we're still working on
And that
improving
facility brings in soccer, or, excuse me, softball tournaments from outside the area, right? And the tax dollars that
Yes.
come with it?
Yep.
Okay. Again, a partnership where everybody is benefiting. Thank you.
Dave, is there anything specific that you need to hear or that you think the city council needs to hear Monday night from this board?
I think they probably just need to understand the critical need for the infrastructure improvements that need to be made to the facility. I think the compliance issue is something that's a little bit new to the city. I probably, maybe I wasn't paying attention closely enough during our talk, but it kind of struck me as, wow, I hadn't really realized it was that serious of a thing until watched the commissioner meeting last week, so. So I think those two things, that kind of puts together a order of magnitude as well as a sense of urgency in terms of timing. So,
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for being here today.
you bet. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Mullen, any questions?
No further questions.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Zabel. Thank you for coming, and
Okay.
maybe with the presentation, we can get the help we need.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the administration office business, but I do have a request for a executive session with the board.
Okay. So with that, is there any other business for the good of the county? Because we have used up both public comment periods. So with that, I guess, Mr. Johnson, move us into executive session.
Thank you. A request,
If I may, can I check with the attorney to make sure she's available this early? I told her 10:30, then I told her 10. Let me make sure she's available right now real quick. We might need to take a recess.
I would request an executive session under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph I, to discuss with legal counsel matters relating to litigation or potential litigation. I would ask that the board, myself, the clerk, the sheriff, the representatives from the prosecuting attorney's office, and I believe it's the risk pool attorney, be allowed to participate. We may need to ask for a short recess to
Yeah.
make sure outside counsel is available.
Is outside counsel, are you trying to reach him right now? Jen?
Yeah, she's on the
I just emailed her. I believe she'll respond shortly.
Okay. We'll just hold tight, and if it's going to be at time, we'll take a recess.
Yes, I'm sorry, ask for the HR director to also be present.
And Keith, she's calling in the exec line right now. Please make sure it's open and let her know we're on recess.
Tell her, wait a second. Jen, can you tell her to hold on, because I
Yeah.
haven't started that yet.
Okay.
She's calling in right now?
Downstairs in the meeting room as well for that.
She calling in right now, she said?
Welcome.
Yes.
Join the conference now. Please enter a meeting number followed by pound. If you are the meeting host, please enter your PIN.
Okay, so she should be able to call in. Jen, we're gonna discontinue this phone line if you'll call in on executive line.
Did Sean say he was coming?
He said he was coming down.
Hi, this is Rachel.
Hey, good morning. This is Keith Johnson, the county administrator. We're just waiting to get all the necessary parties assembled for the executive session.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Keith, Jed's on the line now.
Okay, very good. And I think Sean said he was on his way to the Commissioner's Chamber.
Yes.
So as soon as he arrives, we'll be ready to go. Is the sheriff going to stay? Do you know if Sheriff Raymond's planning on staying for this? I thought so. He may have gotten ordered into it.
Yeah, he put his notes on the table. I think he expects to be here.
Okay.
Eric, is that the sheriff?
Yes.
Is that, Sean saying?
Someone needs to have to figure out how to kick that stupid.
Come on, Sheriff.
Maybe we'll apply for a historical grant to put a new door.
I never played soccer, so.
Take that, use the butt of that firearm and beat on it.
There you go. Yep.
I think we had a meth suspect in the courthouse. When she was laughing and pointing at everybody, you could tell her teeth were rotten.
Yeah. She was,
They escorted her
interesting.
out.
Yeah, Monty came over.
Are you still on the line?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was muted and talking to myself apparently. He said he was heading downstairs, so I anticipate you'd be down there in the next 30 seconds or so.
All right, so we should wait for him?
I appreciate that if it said yes.
All right.
How long did we call this executive session for, Keith?
I'm sorry.
How long did we call it for?
Probably 30 minutes.
Did we make that determination? Did we announce that?
I did not in the request, I don't
We're
believe.
still live. There's still an opportunity.
We'll need the door open for that. Leave the door open for a second, please. Keith, go ahead.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll restate my request for the executive session. I'm requesting the executive session for up to 30 minutes under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph I, to discuss with legal counsel matters relating to litigation or potential litigation. Ask that members of the board, myself, the administrator, the clerk, the HR director, the sheriff, the prosecuting attorney, and the chief civil deputy and outside counsel be allowed to participate.
Okay, we have come out of executive session and we're back in regular session. Is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.